You know the old saying, nobody remembers who came in second place. Well, right now we are doing just that. We are taking a look at songs that peaked at number 2 on the music charts right here on Chart Chat. Hello and thank you for checking out Chart Chat, a look at pop music's history as told by the pop music charts of Billboard magazine. I'm your host, Davey M. Today's video takes a look at all the songs that hit number 2 on the Hot 100 by Billboard magazine during the second half of the 1980s, along with some facts behind some of the hits. You may be seeing some of your favorites here, so let's get started. We start off with Jack Wagner, an actor well known from his time on General Hospital. His venture into music almost got him a number 1 song, but Madonna had other ideas. Like a Virgin spent 6 weeks at number 1, keeping All I Want at number 2. Philip Bailey, with help from Phil Collins, hit number 2 with Easy Lover in February of 1985, kept out of the top by Foreigner's I Want to Know What Love Is. Also in February 1985, Billy Ocean's Loverboy is kept at number 2 because Wham is number 1 with Careless Whisper. 1985 was a big year for Glenn Frey of the Eagles. He had 2 songs peak at number 2. In March, The Heat Is On was kept at number 2 behind REO Speedwagon's Can't Fight This Feeling. Madonna's Material Girl was also kept at number 2 by REO. During her career, she's had 6 songs peak at number 2, and we will profile them here. She shouldn't feel so bad, though. She's had 12 number 1 songs. Prince's second song to peak at number 2 is Raspberry Beret. In July of 1985, it's kept off the top by Duran Duran's A View to a Kill. The legendary Tina Turner continued her comeback in the 80s with We Don't Need Another Hero, a number 2 song from September 1985 from the movie Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Coincidentally, another movie song kept it off the top, and that was St. Elmo's Fire by John Parr. Kool and the Gang's second song to peak at number 2 did so in September 1985. Cherish got stuck behind the number 1 song Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. The second number 2 song by Glenn Frey in 1985, You Belong to the City, might have been number 1 if not for another city song, and that's We Built This City by Starship. Eddie Murphy is better known as an actor, but he tried his hand in music in 1985 with the song Party All the Time, written and produced by Rick James. But Lionel Richie ended up crashing their party as his song Say You Say Me was at number 1. Rock band Survivor continued their comeback in the mid-80s with Burning Heart, a number 2 song in February of 1986, behind Dionne Warwick and Friends' That's What Friends Are For. When the Going Gets Tough, The Tough Get Going is Billy Ocean's second song in the 80s to peak at number 2. This one was topped by Whitney Houston's How Will I Know? Well, don't feel bad for Mr. Ocean. He has had 3 number 1 singles in the United States during his career. ROCK in the USA is John Mellencamp's second song to peak at number 2. In April of 1986, it was kept at number 2 by the number 1 song Rock Me Amadeus by Falco. Manic Monday is the breakout single by the Bangles, which was written by Prince and later recorded by the band. Who and what kept the Bangles out of number 1? Prince, of course, with his song Kiss. Kenny Loggins has had several big hits from movie soundtracks. In July of 1986, his song Danger Zone from the movie Top Gun was kept at number 2 by Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. In September of 1986, Gloria Loring and Carl Anderson had a number 2 song Friends and Lovers. The song that kept it out of number 1, Stuck With You by Huey Lewis and the News. Canadian band Glass Tiger had 2 U.S. top 10 singles in the second half of the 80s. Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone hit number 2 behind Janet Jackson's When I Think of You. When I Think of You also proved to be popular enough to keep Tina Turner's Typical Male at number 2 in October of 1986. If you're keeping track, Typical Male is the second song by Tina Turner to peak at number 2. Robert Palmer's cover of I Didn't Mean to Turn You On by Cherelle peaked at number 2 in November of 1986, kept at bay by Boston's Amanda. Wang Chung's biggest hit in the U.S. is Everybody Have Fun Tonight, which hit number 2 in December of 1986. It was kept out of the top by Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles. The Bangles' hold on number 1 also kept Notorious by Duran Duran at number 2. Notorious is also their second number 2 song in the U.S. C'est La Vie by Robbie Neville hit number 2 in January of 1987, stuck behind At This Moment by Billy Vera and the Beaters. Georgia Satellite's Keep Your Hands to Yourself was kept at number 2 in February of 1987 by Bon Jovi's number 1 song, Livin' on a Prayer. Linda Ronstadt's biggest hit of the 80s is Somewhere Out There, a duet with James Ingram, peaking at number 2. Only Huey Lewis and the News' Jacob's Ladder is higher up the ladder. Let's Wait a While is the 5th single off Janet Jackson's huge 1986 album Control, but it was stopped at number 2 by Club Nouveau's Lean on Me. Crowded House's Don't Dream It's Over got stopped at number 2 in April of 1987 by I Knew You Were Waiting, a duet by Aretha Franklin and George Michael. After leaving Shalimar, Jody Watley was looking for a new success, and she found it with Looking for a New Love. It's one of 2 songs by Watley to peak at number 2 during the 80s. Just a few moments ago, we told you how George Michael kept Crowded House out of the top. Now it's his turn to be stopped at number 2. I Want Your Sex just couldn't beat U2's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. Prince's You Got the Look is his 3rd song to be stopped at number 2, as Lisa Lisa and Cult Jam's Lost in Emotion proved just a little more popular at the time. Madonna has had 6 songs peak at number 2 during her career, and Causing a Commotion is one of them. Whitesnake hit number 1 with Here I Go Again, and just missed out on having a second number 1 as Is This Love was stopped at number 2 by George Michael's Faith. Hazy Shade of Winter earns the Bangles their 2nd song to stop at number 2, but don't feel bad for them. They did have 2 songs hit number 1, Walk Like an Egyptian and Eternal Flame. Pet Shop Boys missed out on having a second number 1 in the US, as What Have I Done to Deserve This with Dusty Springfield peaked at number 2 behind Seasons Change by Exposé. Another artist that missed out on a consecutive number 1 song is Belinda Carlisle, as I Get Weak was kept at number 2 by Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. I guess she was Rickrolled? In 1988, Richard Marx's career was just getting started. His debut album had 4 songs hit the top 3, including Endless Summer Nights. That song ended up at number 2 behind Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. Here is another artist that missed out on having a second number 1 hit in a row. Earlier in the year, INXS hit number 1 with Need You Tonight off their 1987 album Kick. The follow-up single Devil Inside got stuck at number 2 behind Billy Ocean's Get Out of My Dreams, Get Into My Car. British band Johnny Hates Jazz saw their first single in the US, Shattered Dreams, climb all the way to number 2. It might have hit number 1 if not for Gloria Estefan's Anything for You and George Michael's One More Try. In July of 1988, singer Pebbles drove Mercedes Boy to number 2 behind Cheap Trick's The Flame. Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me was the 4th single off Hysteria, its biggest album ever, and it just missed out on hitting number 1. Richard Marx kept them out with Hold On to the Nights. In August 1988, British band Breathe hit number 2 with Hands to Heaven, which was kept out by Steve Winwood's Roll With It. Elton John and George Michael would go on to share a number 1 song, but in August of 1988, Elton was stuck at number 2 with I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That behind George's Monkey. Simply Irresistible by Robert Palmer wasn't completely irresistible, as this song stalled at number 2 behind Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine. In January of 1989, Taylor Dayne's Don't Rush Me hit number 2 behind Two Hearts by Phil Collins. Rapper Tone Loc's debut single, Wild Thing, wasn't wild enough to make it to number 1. It stayed at number 2 behind Paul Abdul's Straight Up. In March of 1989, Sheena Easton missed out on having her second U.S. number 1 song, as The Lover and Me stopped at number 2 behind Debbie Gibson's Lost in Your Eyes. Milli Vanilli's first charting song in the U.S., Girl You Know It's True, was kept out of the top by the Bangles' Eternal Flame. Real Love is Jody Watley's second song to be stopped at number 2. In May of 1989, only Paula Abdul's Forever Your Girl was more popular. Former teen idol Donny Osmond's huge comeback hit Soldier of Love almost hit number 1 in June of 1989, but it peaked at number 2 behind Rock On by Michael Damian, another former teenage idol. Here is another number 2 song by Madonna. Express Yourself was kept out of the top by Simply Red and Martika. Bobby Brown's On Our Own could have been his second number 1 song, but Prince's Bat Dance and Richard Marx's Right Here Waiting had other ideas. Warrant's Heaven was stopped at number 2 in September of 1989 by Milli Vanilli's Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You. Yet another number 2 by Madonna. Cherish was stopped by Janet Jackson's Miss You Much in October of 1989. Miss You Much would also keep The Cure's Love Song at number 2. It would also keep Sowing the Seeds of Love by Tears for Fears out of the top spot. Cover Girl by New Kids on the Block might have had number 1 covered if not for Roxette's Listen to Your Heart, keeping them at number 2. Linda Ronstadt had 2 songs peak at number 2 in the 80s, and both were duets. We heard Somewhere Out There with James Ingram earlier, and to close out the list, she had a number 2 hit with Aaron Neville, Don't Know Much. That's it for songs that hit number 2 in the 80s. We thank you for watching. Look for other videos that feature number 2 songs from other eras, as well as other music topics. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you know when we post new videos. See you next time.